Hello and welcome to Running Faster 40 webinar. My name is Brian Donofrio. I'm a strength and conditioning coach for Advanced Therapy and Performance located in Stamford, Connecticut. So today we're going to dive into the components of the 40, the movements and the positions needed to maximize performance, as well as break down technique for each part of the 40-yard dash to shave off those extra tenths of a second. Comes time to test for college coaches or NFL scouts. So the 40-yard dash is always a topic of debate about how much it actually carries over to performance in the game of football, and that's a topic for another day. Today, I can without hesitation tell you that regardless of its ability to predict performance on the field, your performance in the 40 can be a huge predictor in getting you to play at the next level. The game of football has become fast, like real fast. The old school ground and pound mentality is gone from the sport. Spread offenses are becoming more and more popular, and pass dominant offenses are the norm. According to TeamRankings.com, in 2015, the only teams that didn't throw for over 50% of their plays were Carolina at 50% and Buffalo 49.9%, with 14 teams throwing for over 60% of their plays. That means if you want to compete in the NFL as an offensive player, you need to be able to outrun your defender or be your assignment to protect the edge. On defense, you need to be fast enough to keep up with your man or get to the quarterback before he can launch a ball downfield. Because of this, coaches and scouts are paying much more attention to the 40-yard dash times as of lately. Look at Dan Quinn, head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. His message was very clear to his team and the media in regards to what he's looking for out of the 2016 NFL draft. Fast and physical. The first 4 rounds of the draft considered the 9th fastest safety, the 3rd and 4th fastest linebackers, and the 3rd fastest tight end. Speed kills, and speed can get you to that next level. So let's break down what exactly the 40 is and what it tests. So the 40-yard dash. It's a great test for acceleration. Think starting at a dead stop and building to max speed as quickly as possible. Think of a receiver at the line trying to run a fly or a linebacker crashing through the hole on a delayed blitz. It's also a good test for linear speed and explosiveness off the line, measured mainly through the 10-yard split. There are 4 distinct parts of the 40-yard dash. So you have the initial starting position, including the 2-second delay in the top of the stance, the drive phase off the line, the transition phase, and the top end phase. We will discuss these in depth later in the presentation. All the applications and technical names aside, the 40-yard dash is simply about being fast. So how do we get fast? Being fast comes down to possessing strength, which is the ability to produce force, power, the ability to produce force rapidly, and stability, the ability to control body position and posture while exerting those forces. Look at a guy like Usain Bolt, the fastest man in the world. He's a world champion, an Olympic gold medalist, yet many authorities in the world of track and field would say that his technique is not at the level you'd expect from a sprinter at the elite level like he is. Also, his length at 6 foot 5 inches and frame 207 pounds aren't typical for that of a normal, stockier, more compact short distance sprinter. So, how did he become the fastest man in the world with all those variables working against him? He became the fastest man in the world by working harder than anyone else on the track, and especially in the weight room. He can exhibit forces much higher than his competitors, and has been cited to have reached power outputs of 2,600 watts. Usain Bolt is an anomaly, but he is a living example of the fact that, all other factors aside, you can drive more force into the ground, can apply that force more rapidly, and have the stability to control your body while exerting those forces. You're going to beat the guy next to you every time. If you want to get faster and shave off a few tenths of a second on your 40 time, it all starts with getting strong. As I stated earlier, strength is the ability to produce force. We look at maximal strength as the maximum amount of force one can produce at any given moment. We look at the fastest sprinters in the world, the fastest guys at the combine. All of them possess massive amounts of strength relative to their size and to their competitors. Not only is strength paramount in producing a fast 40 time, it also lays the foundation for athletic performance and helps prevent injury. Think, if the body can produce 600 pounds of force on a squat, then the body can withstand that force when you're in the trenches or when you're getting hit by the linebacker coming off the edge. And then the reverse of that, it can also produce that force when trying to knock the guy in front of you over, or when you're trying to make that tackle coming off the edge. There are 3 exercises that we incorporate into the programs of all of our athletes, especially those looking to get faster. There are many variations of each. It can be loaded with barbells, dumbbells, kettlebells, whatever you have access to and whatever you can get heavy with. The first exercise is a reverse lunge, usually done with 2 kettlebells in front of the chest to get the anterior core fired up. At least that's what we prefer. So the athlete begins standing tall, feet even, about hip width apart. The athlete then takes a large step back with one leg, fully extending the hip in the back and flexing the front hip. So weight should be on the front heel and the back hip, with the toe of the back leg driving into the ground. Look to keep both legs at about a 90-degree angle between the thigh and the lower leg in that bottom position. From there, the athlete drives up to the standing position with both legs. The upper body remains tall, tight core, shoulders back. We then have the athlete repeat the opposite side to complete 1 rep. Now, if this is too challenging, we modify the exercise to a split squat. So you're going to be starting with your feet, again, hip width apart, 1 foot back, about 1 stride length. The athlete then simply drops the back knee just above the ground, getting to that 90-90 bottom position of the reverse lunge, and driving back up. The athlete switches sides for 1 full rep. Again, upper body tall, tight core, shoulders back. So the second exercise we look at is the deadlift. Most of our athletes use the trap bar or the hex bar variation, as we find it translates best to athletic performance and is usually one of the safest variations of a deadlift just because it doesn't place as much stress on the lower back and keeps the athlete's weight distributed more evenly. So the athlete stands in the middle of the trap bar, feet hip width apart, shins in line with the bars on either side. Now, I coach my athletes to pull their shoulders down and back, keeping the neck back, chin tucked. They then push their hips back as far as they can, shifting weight to the heels, bending at the knees slightly to grab the handles of the bar. The athlete then pulls themselves down to get the chest tall, create some tension in the back, glutes, and hamstrings. The athlete then pushes through the heels, driving away from the ground to stand tall. Now, once the bar gets to the knee height, the athlete actively drives the hip into extension, squeezes the glutes at the top. They then reverse that motion, keeping the core tight the whole time to place the bar back to the ground for 1 full rep. Another variation I like to use, if that might be a little too challenging, is the kettlebell deadlift, where athlete stands in the same position, kettlebell between their feet in line with their toes. Following that same pattern to get down on the kettlebell, grabbing with both hands, driving through the heels and the hips to stand tall. The third exercise we use as a foundation to increase in forward speed is the barbell back squat. So the athlete places a box on the rack, athlete sets up with the bar behind the back, resting on the upper traps and shoulders. Shoulders again pulled back and down. Hands should be slightly wider than shoulder width on the bar. So once under the bar, athlete's going to step back to the box. Exercise begins with the athlete bracing the core, keeping neck back, chin tucked. I then cue the athlete to drive the hips back as far as they can, sitting to the box with the shins at a slightly positive angle, think pointing slightly forward. From there, the athlete keeps tension on the hips and the hamstrings in the bottom position, then forcefully drives through the feet, pushing away from the box and standing tall to complete 1 rep. The chest should remain tall with the core braced through that entire exercise. Now, before beginning any of these exercises, we take our athletes through a full dynamic warm-up, as well as ensuring they have proper levels of mobility in the ankles, hips, and upper back to get into all the beginning and end positions safely and effectively. Incorporating these movements into your training, increasing the force you can produce in each, is definitely going to lead you to an improved forward time. Remember, strength is the foundation of performance, and a building cannot last long or stand tall without a solid foundation. So now, once we have established that foundation of strength, we need to be able to move that force as rapidly as possible because, like I stated, the 40 is all about being fast. This is where training for power comes into play. Power is equal to force times velocity. So to maximize power and run at high speeds, we need to increase the force we produce and the velocity at which we produce it. When training for power, the goal is to move as fast as possible with as much effort as possible for every movement and every rep. Teaching the body to move powerfully as fast as possible is what allows us to maximize every stride of the 40-yard dash. There are 4 key exercises I include in training for athletes to move faster. Simple broad jump with both single and double leg variations. So we're just going to describe the double leg variation for today. So the athlete stands tall, rapidly swings the hips and arms back, shifting the weight to the heels, then explosively extends the arms and hips forward, trying to move as far and as fast horizontally as possible. Then on the catch, really landing safely on the back of the heels, loading the hips, keeping that chest nice and tall, as you can see in the image presented. So the second exercise is the bound. The athlete starts at the line, drives out, extending the hip, trying to get as high and as far as possible, swinging the trail leg forward, imitating a sprinting form through the whole exercise. So once the second foot makes contact with the ground, the athlete then explosively drives out off that leg as fast as possible, trying to minimize ground contact time here. So we alternate legs there for a set distance, and that would be one repetition or one set. Now each step should be as explosive as possible throughout that entire time, because again, we want to work up our capacity to be able to output that power throughout the entire 40. So the third exercise that we're going to look at will be a simple box jump. So a box jump, set the box to a height that's pretty comfortable for the athlete. Remember, the goal of box jump isn't to just get your knees up as high as you can and show off for Instagram. It's about trying to dissipate some of that force on the landing to protect the athlete's back and hips. So stand in front of the box, and the athlete is going to, again, sit the hips back, arms back, weight shifted to the heel, and then rapidly extend up as high as possible, landing safely on the box. Again, same as the broad jump landing, heels back, hips back, chest tall. Really think you're going to absorb the force through the posterior side and just protect the knees in the landing. The fourth exercise that we usually have for all of our athletes is the banded single leg hip thruster. So you're going to start with the band set up in the rack with the bench as close to the rack as possible. The athlete will then place his shoulders on the bench, get underneath the band. Band should be running perpendicular to the hips. Athlete then raises one leg to full hip flexion, keeping that leg bent at 90 degrees with some dorsiflexion in that toe. Then sit the hip down as far as you can and explosively extend the hip as high up as you can and as quickly as possible. We then have the athlete switch sides, perform the movement, and that would be one repetition of the exercise. And so remember, for all of these exercises, we are training the body to move fast, so keep the volume low with the intensity high to ensure we are moving as fast as possible for each rep. And then give yourself enough time to rest, usually I like to say 60 to 90 seconds between sets with 5 to 10 seconds between reps. And again, as stated before, work up your capacity volume throughout your training to prepare yourself to be as powerful as possible with each stride in the 40. Now, the final component of the physical traits necessary to train to improve your 40 would be stability. So being strong and powerful won't get us very far if we don't learn to control our bodies and stabilize while exerting that force. So we look at proprioception, the sense of body position and control, core stability, and coordination as specific traits that come along with our stability training. So these traits will allow us to move more efficiently and safely through the 40, can have a huge impact on your athletic performance on the football field. Today we'll look at 4 exercises that I believe offer kind of the most bang for your buck in relation to running for 40. So the first would be a plank, which we like to do in 4 different positions. So you're going to be in a push-up plank, arms extended. Second position would be a push-up plank in the bottom position with the shoulders retracted back, arms bent, and then a side plank on both sides. So I think when sprinting, we need to be able to stabilize in all planes of motion. Therefore, we need to train that stability in those various planes. So the first 2 positions have your toes pointing on the ground, hips extended, core tight, chest high with hands under the shoulders, neck back, chin tucked. Now to get in that bottom position, simply pull your shoulders down and back as if you're about to do a push-up, and just hold yourself in that bottom position for as long as you can. For the side plank, we're going to have our feet stacked, legs long, hips extended, again, core tight, shoulders and neck back with the chin tucked. And we want to keep it in line with the spine. So don't have your head turned any certain way and don't let it creep forward on you. Both arms are going to be extended in a straight line with that bottom hand on the ground in line with the shoulder. Try to hold each position as long as possible while maintaining tension throughout the body. Second movement is a split squat hold. So what we have our athletes do, um, sink down, keeping feet hip width apart, take one step back, should be about one stride length, drop that trail leg to the ground, similar position as for the reverse lunge, and then you're just going to hold each position for as long as possible, and then switch sides, try to even out the time between both. So just think, in order to be powerful coming out of a stride, we need to be stable in that range of motion. So how am I gonna, you know, hold my form throughout a whole 40-yard dash if I can't stand in the split squat hold for 30 seconds? Uh, so the third exercise we're gonna look at is the lateral step down. So to start this exercise off, stand tall on the edge of a box with one foot hanging off the side. Sit back into a planted leg, pushing the hip back and shifting weight to the heel. Keep the hanging leg in front of you with the toes pointed up. Come down until the heel taps the ground and drive up. Focus on keeping the core tight, chest tall, neck back, chin tucked. Keeping the knee in line with the toes on both legs. So complete this for both sides, and that would be one rep. The fourth exercise, and probably one of my favorites, is the bear crawl, which we will do both forwards and backwards as well as side to side. So to get into a bear crawl, we're going to start on all fours. Hands below the shoulders, knees below the hips, ankles flexed with the toes pointed into the ground. We're going to keep our chest tall, neck back, and chin tucked. So to begin the exercise, simply raise both knees right above the ground. Then you're going to be moving forward with the opposite hand and leg, focusing on stabilizing the trunk throughout. So we don't want your hips kind of rotating back and forth. We really want to stay nice in a nice straight line. Continue alternating sides for a specified distance, and then once you get there, move backwards to the starting line. And that would be one set. So we're then going to shift our body parallel to the starting line, and we're going to be moving laterally for a lateral bear crawl. So now with opposite arm and leg, we will reach out away from the line, again stabilizing our trunk, move through a specified distance, and then come back using the opposite side. So the key for this is to move through the shoulder and the hip, really work on reaching out, abducting that shoulder blade, and then also abducting that hip. We don't want to be moving through the elbow or just rotating through the tibia. And then just like with the exercises for power, continue to increase duration, volume, distance for each of these in order to train the body to be stable throughout the full duration of the 40. So to improve your 40 time, just make sure you're including all these components and addressing them properly throughout your training to give yourself the physical tools that you need to succeed. So athletic ability, specifically in terms of what we talked about, strength, power, stability, those are going to be key to running a faster 40. And will definitely go a long way in decreasing your time. But in order to really impress the scouts and set yourself up to earn that scholarship or that contract at the next level, we need to make sure our technique is on point. So football is a game of inches, and like football, the 40 is too. That 1/10 of a second can be the difference between playing at the school of your dreams or having to try out for a D3 program as a walkout. That 1/10 can be the difference between a multi-million-dollar early draft round contract or becoming an undrafted free agent. So let's get started talking about the technique of the 40. The 40 is split into 4 parts that I'll discuss in depth. So there's the initial starting position and the 3-point stance, the drive phase off the line for the first 10 yards of the event, the transition phase, which is made up of yards 10 through 20, then the top end phase for the last 20 or so yards. Perfecting each phase can lead to some serious improvements on the clock. So the 3-point stance might seem simple enough. I'm sure you've all done it plenty of times in practice, but it's a precise position that can have the biggest impact on your success. Remember, if we start in a bad position, we're likely to finish in a bad position, or we're going to exert a lot of wasted energy to get out of that bad position. And the 40 is all about efficiency and maximizing each step. In 4 to 5 seconds, we don't have room for error, so if we really want to make an impression at the combine. Setup, start with both feet about a foot length behind the line. Take your trail leg and place the rear foot at an additional foot length back, keeping the feet hip width apart. So you're going to bend down on one knee, extending your arms over the line, walk both hands back behind the line, keeping hands shoulder width apart. Keep your neck back, chin tucked, and your back flat throughout this. So then we're going to raise our hips just above shoulder height, creating tension in the calves, hamstrings, glutes, quads. As you can see in the image, that front knee should be at about a 90-degree angle, the back knee at about 120 degrees. I think in this position, it's all about creating a positive shin angle. So we want our shins to be pointed in the line of direction that we want to accelerate out. If our hips are too high or too low, that's going to give us too much vertical displacement, and we really want to be coming out that start as horizontal as possible. So once we're in that position of the hips raised right above shoulder height, your weight should be shifted slightly forward with that front arm, but again, maintaining tension in the legs. Our legs are the most powerful part of our body, so we want to get full use out of them. So then we're going to finally raise our trail arm at 90 degrees in the elbow with the hand right by the hip. So this position is held for 2 seconds before driving out to start. The drive phase is all about exploding from the line as powerfully as possible. We want to stay close to parallel to the ground with the legs performing a pistoning action, striking the ground and pushing away from the line. The arms should be reaching forward, swinging powerfully to keep pulling your momentum straight ahead. Think that first drive, you should almost be blocking the sun with the hand in front of the head, and then continuing with that really rapid arm action and the pistoning of the legs. So we want to keep the stride length as long as possible while maintaining power to cover as much ground in as little time. The transition phase consists of the next 10 yards, where the athlete moves from a more horizontal body angle that we have off the start, kind of slowly approaching a more vertical position that you'll see in the top end phase. And then you're going to see that the pistoning action that we have in the drive phase is going to slowly transition to a more full hip turnover, as well as the arms being in a more controlled driving manner. The top end phase, which consists of the last 20 yards or so of the 40. Here you're going to be in a more vertical position with the arms driving and legs definitely moving through that full hip turnover. But remember, the goal is to still be as powerful as possible with every step. So we want to really get that knee up, really extending rapidly down with a lot of force behind us. If you want to look at what a good top end form should look like, look at some of the elite sprinters in the 100 meter. Think Usain Bolt, Tyson Gay, Justin Gatlin. They were really just moving very smoothly and efficient throughout each step. So, why do we train for the 40 in the first place? Now, like I mentioned before, in no way is the 40 the end-all, be-all of football performance, but an improved 40 time can give a young athlete the opportunity to play at the next level. Common results lead to better draft position, higher salaries for NFL prospects, and high school athletes, it gives them the chance of earning a scholarship to the school of their dreams and getting a chance to play at the collegiate level, which is something not a lot of people can say that they've done. So what's next? Now that you've seen the way we attack training for the 40, and if you're serious about improving your time and your overall athletic performance, as a thank you for listening in on this presentation, we are offering a complimentary assessment at our Stamford, Connecticut location, value of close to $200. You simply click on the link below, you'll see an advertisement for our combine training, as well as access to our assessment schedule. So simply click the link, sign up for a spot, and we'll get started. So again, thank you for listening in, and best of luck to you in achieving your goals of playing football at the next level. Thank you.